Metal Gear Solid, a game series that many love and for good reason. It's one of those games that comes out once every few years, taking time between each installment to polish to a mirror shine, like Grand Theft Auto, Legend of Zelda, Duke Nukem Forever. Oh boy, 12 years in development, it's gonna be great! Oh God. All joking aside, Metal Gear Solid is one of my favorite game series, and with the 5th installment finally coming out, I thought I would count down my top 5 Metal Gear Solid games. But there's only like 5 of them. No, we got Metal Gear Solid 1, Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 3, Metal Gear Solid 4, Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. Ooh, what about the remakes? We got Twin Snakes and the 3D thing on the 3DS. Oh, and Portable Ops, and there's the Game Boy Color game. Ooh, the cell phone game, remember, on the Razor? Fan games! Now, being number 5 on this list isn't too shabby. All the games on this list are of high quality, but some resonate with me more than others. Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty is a lot of people's least favorite game in the series, and while I wouldn't put it that low, it lands at number 5 on this list. First off, Metal Gear Solid 2 is a visual masterpiece. When this game came out, it blew people away, with its attention to detail in every aspect. The tanker section alone has so many little details in it, it still looks good today, more than 14 years later. I had played this game at a friend's house a little bit when I was younger, and I kinda remember liking the ability to kill birds. I guess I was a messed up kid, but I didn't really sit down and play this game for myself until 2007, when I finally got my hands on a PS2. We were well into the 7th console generation at that point, and it still impressed me. So visually, this game holds up, but why is it at number 5? Well, mainly its story, and no, I don't mean Raiden. Oh, Raiden's not Snake, this is change, I don't like change, I don't like it at all. No, none of that shit. When I say story, it's the game overall. Metal Gear Solid 2 just never clicked with me like the other games in the series. The bosses were underdeveloped, and the cutscenes went on too long about nonsense. There is a balance you need to find between story and preaching about things that have nothing to do with the plot. Also, its location felt very copy and paste to me. The big shell just felt uninspired and bland because every room was the same industrial setting, and it got old backtracking through all that. The ending of the game was epic though, when the commander starts acting funny and you have no idea what's going on. This is one of the standout moments in the series for me, and on my first playthrough, it was surreal. Overall, I'd say the game has more good than bad, but it never clicked with me as much as the other games in the series. At least Raiden had that cool sword that inspired some silly videos I may have made in the past. Yeah, I was cool. Now, Metal Gear Solid 4 has a lot of problems I stated in Metal Gear Solid 2, but why is it higher? Fan service. Straight up fan service, and I don't mean this kind. To me, Metal Gear Solid 2 came from a place of arrogance and preachiness, while Metal Gear Solid 4 stuck to the story. Yes, people wouldn't shut up, but the game was overall on a bigger scale, and the long cutscenes felt better. It might also have something to do with how long I waited to play this game. Metal Gear Solid 4 came out in 2008, but I had an Xbox 360 at the time. I didn't get a PlayStation 3 until 2013, and you're damn right the first game I played on that was Metal Gear Solid 4. I spent 5 years on my own sneaking mission, avoiding spoilers of this game, hiding under boxes, covering my eyes and ears at the slightest mention of it, and I did pretty good. The only thing really spoiled for me was the Metal Gear Rex and Ray fight, and for 5 years that's not too bad, but I'm fully aware this game has problems. I often say this game is only good for Metal Gear Solid fans because it tries to wrap up and reference everything in the series. Yes, they go on forever, but if you're a fan, you accept that and you enjoy every moment of it. As far as gameplay, this game streamlined the great improvements from Metal Gear Solid 3 and added the crouch walk, thank God. I always thought it was weird in the other games to either stand up straight or crawl on the ground, but in Metal Gear Solid 4 you can get around a lot faster and still be sneaky, and I love it. Fun fact though, I was late for work because of this game's ending. I was just about to beat the game and I had an hour or so before work. I had just beaten the final boss, an epic fist fight against the series' main protagonist on top of a submarine to the theme song of each game in the series. Yeah, this game gets weird. And the final cutscene starts. Oh, I've got plenty of time, I think. The final cutscene in the game is an hour and a half long. I was 10 minutes late to work. There is a feature film at the end of this game, and it was cool and all, but damn, that's a lot. I still love it though. Number 3 takes us to my first Metal Gear game, Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes, and I'm also counting Metal Gear Solid 1 here since they're pretty much the same game. Calm down, I know the cutscenes are different and some of the voice acting changed a little bit, but come on, it's the same game, same thing. Like I said, this was my first Metal, my first Gear, my first Solid, and I was probably too young at the time, but I turned out fine.
Ninjas, revolvers. Dad, the GameCube can read my mind.
It's fine, son, take your meds.
Metal Gear Solid 1 was a game changer in the games industry. It showed that games could be a true storytelling medium, with its long cutscenes and mature themes. While it's super short and brief compared to later games in the series, it certainly laid the groundwork for what would come. Where the bosses in Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 4, and heck, Metal Gear Solid 3, except for a few exceptions, felt really uninspired and underdeveloped, Metal Gear Solid 1 and Twin Snakes felt like something special. It could be because by the time I played Twin Snakes, the legendary Psycho Mantis fight had already become part of gaming culture, but I just think it was great. I cared what the bosses had to say. They didn't go on forever about crap, but they spoke enough to flesh them out and to understand their motives. The same story bits are hit in the Twin Snakes, mind you, with a little added flair. Yeah, it gets a bit crazy, but they're still fun to watch. Metal Gear Solid 1 also really popularized the sneaking genre of games, and we have to thank it for that. Thank you, Metal Gear Solid. I'm gonna pat you on the head. Okay. Twin Snakes is the way to go for me, though. They updated the game with the first-person aiming and made the visuals on par with Metal Gear Solid 2. The PlayStation original hasn't held up that well over the years as far as gameplay and graphics, so it was nice to see it touched up for a new generation. It's known as a classic, it is a classic, and will remain a classic for all time. Metal Gear Classical.
Non più tra I farfalloni amoroso, notte e giorno di torno girando, delle belle turbando al riposo, ma ci s'è tuatoncino d'amor.
Metal Gear Solid 3 has the best theme song ever. As I sit here and write this part to the game's soundtrack, I want to break out into song.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
Metal Gear Solid 3 is probably the game I look most fondly upon in the series. Also, let me point out, I'm talking about subsistence. Screw that top-down camera. Metal Gear Solid 3 has a much more fun and lighthearted tone to it all, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have its standout badass epic moments too. The boss is probably the best character in the Metal Gear series, and one of those few bosses I mentioned earlier. Metal Gear Solid 3 has a mixed bag of boss fights, but the few good ones makes up for all the others. First off, fighting Ocelot might not be the most amazing fight, but the fact that a boss from Metal Gear Solid 1 is in this game at such a young age is a lot of fun. The boss is epic. In any scene she's in, her presence commands the screen. And after spending the game getting destroyed by her at every turn, you need to take her down. But she's not a bad guy, or girl. She's your mentor, and at many times you see Snake trust her because she means that much to him. The character depth in her fight means so much more than any gameplay mechanic, strategy, or pattern. And finally, the best boss battle ever, the end. The end makes you actually use stealth to defeat him, and that's cool enough. But what I really love about him is the little touches outside of the fight. There is a cutscene early on in the game where the end is in a wheelchair and is being pushed away. You only have a few seconds, but in this scene, you can shoot him, and if you do, he just won't show up later on as a boss fight. That's an amazing touch, but even better if you save your game and turn off your PS2 during the fight and wait a week, or, change the clock ahead on your PlayStation, you come back and the end will have died of old age. Yeah, it's these little touches that makes this game so memorable for me. One of my other favorites is if you kill Ocelot on the ground, you are taken to a kill screen for creating a time paradox, because Ocelot appears in Metal Gear Solid 1. On top of the little story touches, Eve is fun, Colonel Volgin's crazy, and the gameplay and stealth was greatly improved. Guards have much wider vision, but with camo and grass, you can outsmart them, instead of just hiding around corners like in other games. The campiness of this game was just so much fun, and the gameplay was almost perfect. Almost. Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. I started with this game at number 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3 at number 1, but here was my conclusion. Peace Walker is Metal Gear Solid 3 with a crouch walk. Metal Gear Solid 3 with a crouch walk. Yes, it is that much of a gameplay improvement for me. It was even added to Metal Gear Solid 3 on the 3DS, so I'm not the only one who thinks so. Peace Walker was basically the next game in the main series, and had a team rivaling the size of Metal Gear Solid 4. Because of it being on a simpler engine on the PSP, the team could focus on making a ton more content than in previous games. I played the PS3 HD re-release of this game, and I had a blast with it, obviously since it's number 1. The gameplay was updated with improvements from Metal Gear Solid 4. Like I said, Instead, Metal Gear Solid 3 with a crouch walk. And it just feels good. After so many games in the series, it just seems like the team gets it. Everything just clicks, and this is the best feeling Metal Gear Solid game yet. The stealth feels right, the guns feel right, the base management made sense in the context of the story, and being a handheld game meant the game's levels were split up into smaller maps, but I liked this change. It made progress feel rewarding when you make it past all the guards in one section, and this kept with the pace like you were always achieving something new. While some maps are reused in the late game, most of the time it's always something new, with very little of the backtracking from the other games. The story was silly enough and serious enough like Metal Gear Solid 3 with a crouch walk, and even the bosses were new. In this game you fought a bunch of mechs or Metal Gears, but they were a fun change from the usual team of dudes or chicks. Speaking of chicks, the ending of this game is super weird with this girl in her underwear for some reason. Is it hot in there? She steals your Metal Gear and, hey baby, you looking good in that Metal Gear. Wait a minute, how old is Paz? Hang on. Oh, okay, she's over 20. She's over 20, we're good. Hey babe, looking good in that Metal Gear. Now how old is that raccoon? Is that a dinosaur? This game is weird, but that's what Metal Gear Solid does best, mixing silly with serious and giving you a great, diverse experience. Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker is my favorite Metal Gear Solid game, and for a handheld game, that's pretty impressive. Good job, little PSP. You were good for a few things. Alright guys, so that's my top 5 Metal Gear Solid games. What do you think? Did I get it right? Who knows, this whole list could change. I haven't played Metal Gear Solid 5 yet, and it could take the place of something on this list. But what do you guys think? Let me know what your top Metal Gear Solid games are. Also, like this video if you want to help out the show, and check out Culture Shock Network on Twitch. I'd love to meet you guys on there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.